All right, ladies and gents, keeping on the supply side of things, we're going to look at the cost of production. Again, now, the law of supply states that the higher the price, the more you're going to supply. So you have to then figure how much does it cost companies to produce things, okay? How much does it cost to make that snap bracelet? And how do you factor that into your revenue model and so forth, okay? So again, as the price goes up, they're going to make more stuff, okay? They're going to make more as the price goes up and less as the price goes down, okay? The question then becomes, how much are they going to produce? And can you just keep adding workers and make things, make more product? Or is there a breaking point, okay? Where's the cost-benefit analysis here? And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But you have to remember, simply adding workers doesn't mean you're going to create more product. You get to a point where you become inefficient, okay? So when you look at labor and just determining labor now, you're looking at the number of people hired or the number of workers you have to help with production, okay? And the question that you need to consider is this: does simply adding workers result in a greater supply? Or at some point, are you becoming inefficient? Think back to the opportunity cost model we looked at with sleep and test scores, right? Sleep as opposed to test scores. And you got to a point where you had a decrease in scores when it decreased your sleep, right? Same thing happens with labor. There's a marginal product of return or marginal product of labor that we'll look at. So when you see this term, what they're talking about is the change in output from hiring another worker, okay? Conversely, you can look at the change of output from ridding yourself of another worker, but what are you getting when you add one more unit of labor, one more worker, man hour, whatever it is, okay? So let's say we're looking at paper airplanes a little bit. We'll do this in class. But if you have 0 workers, you're making 0 airplanes, and your marginal product of labor is 0, okay? This just means how many planes are you getting per worker. 1 worker, you're making 3 airplanes, okay? Let's say it's per day, per hour, whatever it is. Here, you're getting 3 together. You have 2 workers, you're making 6 planes. Each worker is making 3, okay? When you have 3 workers, so you add another one, your marginal product of labor increases because you're making now 12. So here, each person's making 3. Here, each person's making 4. And your marginal product of labor increases as you go up. Now, the more workers you hire, the less planes you're making from this number. Why is that? Well, maybe somebody's talking too much. Maybe there's not enough for people to do. Maybe they're inefficient, whatever it is. But you have to understand that simply hiring workers does not always increase the number of things you're making, your product, your output, whatever it is, okay? So that leads us into this increasing marginal return, okay? And increasing marginal return just looks at your level of production, your ability to manufacture things as the marginal product of labor increases and as workers increase, right? So you get to a point where you're adding workers, so you're becoming more efficient, you're producing more things, but you're going to reach a tipping point where you have too many workers and your production suffers for inefficiency, for maybe it's a personality conflict, whatever it is. But you just can't keep adding workers and think you're going to get more stuff, okay? You become essentially inefficient. That's called your diminishing marginal returns, okay? So we'll look at this later. Don't pay attention to that question yet, okay? But what this means is, at what point are you inefficient when you add another worker? So your marginal product of labor, how much you're making, decreases as workers increase. You don't want to be at this point. It means you have too many people, okay? So you have overall, maybe you have an increase in output but a decrease in the rate, so you're less efficient, okay? You have to your workers have to work with a limited amount of resource and capital, okay? Again, don't worry about these, we'll do this in class. But the idea is you're at a point where you hire too many workers and you're inefficient. You have to find that sweet spot. Okay. We'll stop here and look at production costs in a second. Thanks, guys.